Welcome to the Think Small podcast, hypergrowth for small businesses. So, what's slowing you down?
Well, hello everyone. I'm Denise Steinbring, your host for the Think Small podcast. And today's conversation is going to be different than anything we've done on this show. Most of our guests built companies. Today's guest built a science, and then he built a company around it, and then he watched a bad business partnership nearly take it all away, and he kept going anyway. Dr. Divyan Patel is the founder of Genome Explorations, a genomic profiling and molecular diagnostics company he started in Memphis, Tennessee in 2001, 1 year after the human genome was sequenced. In 25 years, without a single dollar of venture capital, he built a global company that has worked with over 1,000 institutions worldwide, like Harvard, Oxford, Cambridge, Louis Pasteur Institute, the Indian Institute of Technology. He's published more than 180 peer-reviewed papers and developed a blood-based test that can tell the difference between traumatic brain injury and PTSD with 99% accuracy. The government and defense noticed. So did the NFL Players Association. Dr. Divyan Patel, welcome to Think Small. I've really been looking forward to this one.
Thank you for inviting me, Denise. It's a pleasure. I appreciate this opportunity.
Yes. Well, before we get into some of the business decisions, I want people to understand who you are as a scientist, because I think that's the lens for everything else. So tell us a little bit about where you came from. Born in Africa, educated in England, and how a PhD student in Leeds, England ends up at St. Jude Children's Research Hospital in Memphis.
It's, again, quite a story. So, born in Africa. I had some schooling in India, but at the age of 11, I was transferred over to England to be with my family away from boarding school. All of my formal education is from England. My first degree was from the University of Liverpool, and then the second to my master's, my PhD, both from the University of Leeds. Finally graduated from my PhD in 1992, and I had published some interesting papers that actually looked at cancers in a slightly different way than what traditionally people looked at. In essence, I was identifying one patient with the same cancer from another with the same cancer. St. Jude got really interested in that, asked me to come and join them. And basically, I was meant to stay 2 years, train the staff, and then go back to England. Unfortunately, because the technology is so brand new, unfortunately, the people, they asked me to stay for another 4 years and so on. So I stayed at St. Jude for 10 years. I set up the entire molecular division for them so that, they had the opportunity to do so without my presence. And then in 2001, I started Genome Explorations. At that time, our goal was, within the first year, maybe, because it was a one-man operation. I had borrowed $40,000 from a friend to get started, and had a good relationship with all of my vendors. Because again, I was putting a brand new technology that didn't have a utility to use. And so they were quite happy to just loan me the equipment for a year and I could pay them back. And that's how we got started. My intention was to actually have maybe clients in the Memphis area initially for the first year, maybe in the second year and third year, maybe get some other clients in Tennessee, and then try and progress on to, the rest of the country. Well, it turns out in the very first year, as you quite rightly pointed out, I was already being approached by Harvard and Oxford and Cambridge and Stanford and UCLA. So we basically took off running. It's been quite a fantastic journey to be able to actually utilize a brand new technology, and that's the technology of genomics, and apply it to, predominantly cancer. That's my background. So initially, all of my work was concentrated on adult cancers because pediatric was already taken care of at St. Jude. And as it turns out, with all of these new clients that we ended up having, had great projects that I took on. Things like Harvard had a schizophrenia program. There was another program at Yale that actually was looking at Alzheimer's and so on. It's been a great journey. My most funnest experience was, going to San Diego with my then partner, who was a helicopter pilot for the Navy, and he took me to the base in Colorado, and basically, I was in a helicopter simulator, But anyway, as we're leaving, some Marines or whoever the SEALs, sorry, came and approached us and sort of mentioned the fact that they're working with these dolphins, the mind-seeking dolphins. They spend a lot of money and time training them, and eventually, I'm like, a lot of them dolphins just end up passing away before they actually get to be active. And so I got that project. They sent me dolphin bloods, and I was able to actually identify a genetic profile that could differentiate the ones that were passing away from the ones that weren't. So, I mean, in addition to just things that we've done for human diseases as well, it's been quite interesting to actually, do some work within the animal world as well, just to help out where we can.
Yeah.
But it's been quite exciting to actually apply this technology just about any disease type. So we look forward to more projects coming in.
Yeah, it's just fascinating to talk to you. For maybe listeners who don't understand exactly what genomic profiling is, can you maybe give a real world example? Maybe Cologuard is an example of, a blood test that detects cancer versus other ways of traditional medicine.
For sure. So, I mean, typical diagnostics are done, by physicians, pathologists, and so on and so forth. What these technologies allow us to do is to actually go beyond that, right? So we're looking at every genetic marker, and that can be anywhere from 2.7 million to 3.2 billion different markers that we look at in order to actually identify the exact profile for that individual, for that cancer, and then glean from that, because it is a genome and a global approach, we can glean from that exactly what the causative agents are for that individual's cancer, and then, or disease for that matter. And then the idea would be to go back and then target those specifically. So you're actually targeting just the cancer cells, not the other. You used a great example of Cologuard. That's a colon predisposition test, colon cancer predisposition test. And to that point, we've actually also developed a genome exploration, a predisposition test. That's a total of 146 different genes we look at. And that is to give you an idea of predisposition to 88 different types of cancers. So, and that can be done, with a cheek swab at birth and then onwards, anytime thereafter. And we can tell you that. We've also then developed a secondary test to follow up with that. If you do have a high percentage rate of getting a particular type of cancer, we develop what's called the liquid biopsy test. So that basically is looking at blood circulating tumor markers, and depending on your percentage possibility of getting the cancer, we would screen you every 2 weeks to every 2 years, and catch the cancer as early as we can and treat it before it takes hold of the body and then starts destroying your life.
Yes, and these are highly accurate, right? I mean, at your time at St. Jude, you helped improve the childhood cancer rate from 60 to 90%, right?
Yeah, I mean, for majority of the leukemias in kids coming in, it's been quite a phenomenal journey. Yeah, they've actually experienced some real, true benefits from it. So yes, it does contribute to longevity and so on and so forth.
Yeah. So let's go back. In 2001, 1 year after the human genome was sequenced, you walked away from St. Jude, one of the most prestigious children's research hospitals in the world, to start a company. You had told me that 13 of the 15 department chairs at St. Jude rejected the technology that you had developed as a fishing expedition. So what made you believe that you could build something commercial out of an approach that even your own colleagues didn't believe in yet?
Yeah, so it's kind of wonderful to actually have that experience as well, right? So these are the smartest of the smart, right? St. Jude doesn't actually employ anybody but the best of the scientists, and they can afford to do that. They have a great reputation. But they didn't quite get the technology. Again, brand new technology, nobody really knew, and that's the reason why they did. But I did have faith in the technology, and that first study showed that. I was still at St. Jude, where we were able to take pediatric leukemias and, patients with T-cell leukemia, all of them, all had different profiles. And so we were able to show that, yeah, there's a reason why, certain individuals responded well to the therapy, others outright did not respond, or thirdly, they responded, but they also had side effects. So it was kind of nice to know. And then even while I was at St. Jude, I was being approached by universities just to help them with their projects to get to that point. And so that was basically the kick up the backside, if you like, to say, hey, go out and do it because this technology is good.
Yeah. And was there an investor that sort of fueled you along?
Yeah, so I mean, like along the as soon as the first year, and they saw what the capabilities were at Genome Explorations, I was approached by venture capital people and everything else, individual investors, so on. And I kind of shied away from it because I knew that the investor has an ROI in mind, when the return on investment in mind, when they actually give you funding. Mm-hmm. And I knew this technology was more than just a test for cancer, right? So, and we wanted to just continue doing so, and I didn't want them to, stifle that progress. So for 25 years, we kept it independent, mm-hmm. so that I could get those. And each one of those 180 plus peer-reviewed publications you mentioned are all a proof of principle for a novel diagnostic for a novel disease. So. Mm-hmm. It's been quite enjoyable.
Yeah. And who was Laddie Smead?
Oh, yeah. So he's the reason why I was able to get the lab started at St. Jude. So he was donating $25 million to St. Jude, very kind of him. And somehow, and I'm assuming my boss told him that I was doing this thing. And he basically made that a condition that $5 million of that would go towards helping me start that project. Or that program. And so that's what a wonderful young fellow. I was younger than him at the time, but he had a lot of vision and a great giving heart.
Wonderful. And your decision to not take any venture capital money must have taught you some things, because you had to sort of do this on your own, right? And so What did you figure out that you might not have ever learned if somebody had just written you a check? What were the learnings from that?
I'm quite good at the day-to-day operations. I'm extremely good at my research and setting up a lab and stuff like that. But bookkeeping or basically payroll and things like that. I mean, like I had to learn it all because we didn't have enough money to actually hire people for those services. So I had to learn how to actually use QuickBooks and how to actually manipulate payroll to be actually on time every time, and so on and so forth. So it was quite an experience, and also just sort of dealing with clients. So luckily, I was fortunate enough to be the first company out there, and I had a lot of word of mouth marketing. So I would work with a professor. We would publish a study. They would then tell their colleagues and say, hey, use Divyan's lab. He is brilliant, and so on and so forth. So that was quite a learning experience, because I was kind of envisaging having to deal with salespeople, which in my life, I didn't really quite enjoy. You sell me things and I'm busy.
Yes. You had mentioned to me that your sequences cost $1 million each and become outdated every 2 to 3 years. So every dollar that the company made went right back in, right, to fuel more research. What does that kind of capital discipline teach you about running a business that most founders who raise money never learn?
Right, and that's exactly it. So we use our money very wisely, and it was actually, everything was being reinvested. I think I kept 20% for overheads and salaries and things like that. But 80% of it was reinvested in actually adding newer technologies. As technologies get outdated, we always were at the cutting edge of genomics and that technology. So yeah, that did teach me quite a lesson, because the normal tendency is, oh my God, I've got money in the bank, let's go spend it.
Yes.
We didn't do that, thank God.
Yeah. So you have a blood test that can definitively differentiate traumatic brain injury from PTSD at 99% accuracy, and the Department of Defense has contracted you to build this. Millions of veterans, athletes, first responders, and anyone who's ever taken a hit to the head, myself included, really need this right now. And yet most Americans have never heard of Genome Explorations. So what is the actual distance between having a scientifically proven solution and having it deployed at scale? And what's the hardest part of that journey for you that nobody ever talks about?
Right. So this is where I'm like, if I had the right venture capital that was willing to grow with me and have that, then it would have been easy to do, right? We would have been able to take it to market and so on. Because I didn't have that, I did merge with another company who had raised 100 million. But it takes money to take things commercial, as you, I'm sure, quite well appreciate. For me, doing the research part of it, I could self-fund it. but to get FDA approval and things like that, it takes millions and millions of dollars, and we just didn't, we didn't have that revenue. So I tried merging with people in the past, and that hasn't quite worked out. So I'm going back to basics and try to build it myself, and then also try to get it to market myself, maybe with some, venture capital help if needed, but for that one product only.
Yeah. Interesting.
And it's it's literally at 99.9% or 99.7% accuracy in terms of the genetics of it, and that's how it got published. So it is peer-reviewed published. And then its reproducibility is like about 87.5%, which is also more than twice the accuracy that's currently used to differentiate those disease states.
Yeah. And, you've talked about how the commercialization aspect of it is hard, right? And yet you've got a test that applies to contact sports from middle school through professional. And you've spoken to the NFL Players Association. They're interested, but the NFL itself is not. What does that tell you about the early adopters of a technology and how hard this might be?
So I was just saying, I don't think it's going to be hard once we get started and once I got funding, because it is a test that is quite obviously needed, not just within the sports world or the defense world, but also, like you quite rightly pointed out, any contact sport, any trauma unit and so on. If you have a roadside test that can tell you definitively if there's physical damage to the brain, then obviously it's quite useful.
So I want to talk about something that you shared with me before we started recording today, because I think it's one of the most important parts of your story for our audience, right? All founders hit roadblocks that they didn't anticipate. And for you, after spending 25 years of building something extraordinary without VC money, without a marketing team, on the strength of the science alone, you made a decision to merge with another company so that they could fund the FDA pathway, as you mentioned, and finally bring the TBI test to market. And it didn't really go the way you planned. Can you share a little bit about what happened?
And it's such a shame because we had the test, and as I pointed out, it's quite ready to go. Unfortunately, this particular company that I merged with had a clash with the DOJ of Medicare. There's a Medicare fraud charge on the company 2 years prior to me merging with them. And they did not disclose that to me. And, of course, I'm now stuck with my equipment being in Scottsdale, Arizona, me being in Tennessee. And then, nobody knows where my equipment is. So we're having to start fresh again.
Yeah. That's a hard lesson to learn. What would you tell a founder right now who has just found out that a partnership they trusted has gone sideways, not through their own fault like with you, but because of what someone else did? What is the first thing that they should do?
Don't lose hope, basically. And then, always keep pursuing. If you're the founder of a company, you had faith in your, technology or your vision, stick to it. Don't let them get you down.
Well, Dr. Patel, we're in the last stretch. Our audience here is full of founders and entrepreneurs who are building something right now, some of them facing their own version of what you've been through. But before I let you go, I have 2 questions. First, based on everything that you've navigated, the rejection at St. Jude in the early days, the VC road not taken, the partnership that went wrong, what is one thing you would tell a founder today that you wish someone had told you?
Oh, gosh, that's a tough question. So, I think if somebody had told me about how to manage these kind of mergers and so on and so forth, we do have a law firm that I use, but I just couldn't afford to use them because, any other founder, please do your due diligence before you do merge. And then, if you do have a bad experience, don't give up hope, just keep going. Yeah,
your story is certainly one of resilience. And lastly, sort of where to from here? You're rebuilding the lab. The TBI test is 90 days away from being commercially available. What does the next chapter look like for you?
Right. Then the next chapter is to go down those 180 plus peer-reviewed publications and then take diseases that other people are not working on so much, or they're orphan diseases or they're rare diseases and so on and so forth. Focus on them first, and then go on some of the mainstays like. We'd be able to tell you, again, as a predisposition test, if you have the likelihood of getting dementia, Alzheimer's, and so on and so forth. So my goal is to start building those out further. once we get once we get the TBI test to market, there should be sufficient revenues to never have to worry about it.
And is that the strategy to leverage any revenue that you're generating from the sales of a TBI test to be able to fund some of these other products to bring them to market?
After having learned the lessons I have, yes, absolutely.
Yes.
Yeah, don't trust anybody else. You kind of do your own thing.
Yeah. Well, Dr. Patel, this has been one of the most remarkable conversations I've had on this show. For our listeners who want to follow your work and learn more about Genome Explorations, where should they go?
I think the website says a lot. So it's genome-explorations.com. That explains everything, all the technologies we have. It has a good selection of publications that we've been able to publish and how we applied it. I'm on LinkedIn. I can be easily reached. I have my phone number listed on my website and so on. If anybody's interested in sort of contacting me or even listening to my story and how we did it, or if they need help, I'd be happy to actually contribute.
That's wonderful. And to our Think Small listeners, if today's conversation reminded you that the gap between scientifically proven and commercially deployed is where the real entrepreneurial work happens, please share this podcast with somebody who needs to hear it. We'll see you next time. And did you want to say one last thing, Dr. Patel?
Oh, no, I was just about to thank you very much for giving me the opportunity. Thanks, Denise.
It's been a great conversation. Thank you so much for your time.
Fantastic. Take care. Have a blessed day.
Welcome to the Think Small podcast, hypergrowth for small businesses. So, what's slowing you down?